Hello everybody, it's KJ again, and today we are going to do a reading from my current book. This one is called Someone Else's Daughter, and it is by Linsey Lanier, and it's a really cool thriller whodunit kind of story. In our chapter today, we're doing chapter 12. We have our lead, whose name is Miranda Steele. She has recently been recruited by a top PI in Atlanta, and his name is Wade Russell Parker III. And right now it's kind of her orientation to his agency, and she's not quite feeling it, and he's trying to get her on board. So we'll see if he's able to do that. All right, everybody, here we go. Chapter 12. She didn't expect Jen to take her to see Parker. The old man, the silver fox. It kind of felt like being sent to the principal's office. But Miranda changed her mind after her escort dropped her off and stomped away in a huff, and she stepped through the door. This was no schoolhouse. Parker's workspace was huge. Her whole studio apartment and maybe part of her neighbor's could fit inside it. The floor-to-ceiling windows that ran along two walls showcased a breathtaking view of the city, with the sunlight flooding in, shining on the glassy furniture, making everything sparkle like diamonds. Done in the same blue and silver decor as the rest of the floor, the place had an unearthly glow. Like a little slice of heaven. And there was Michael the Archangel himself, staring at her, his hair perfect, his arms folded over his chest, wearing a blue cashmere suit and a silk tie. Silver fox, huh? This angel had horns. His expression seemed dazed. Admiration? Regret? Or was he just horny? Ooh. Yeah, there's a really weird noise there. I'm going to go back and fix that with a process called punch and roll, where I go in front of my mistake and pick up from there. Regret? Or was he just horny? He shot her that sexy grin. So you decided to show up? Yeah. For another minute, she gawked at his place. Computers were everywhere. On the wall was a huge map, projected from a machine hooked up to a laptop on the table. An aerial view of trees and houses. Welcome aboard. How's your first day so far? She ran her hand over the transparent surface of his desk. Smooth as glass. It was glass. Peachy. It's just that daughter of yours thinks I don't belong here. He chuckled to himself. You've already discovered she's my daughter. Yeah, and I kind of share her opinion about me. He turned away, pressed a key on the laptop. Look, Parker, I don't know what you want, but... He gestured toward the map on the wall, which he'd just... Hold on. I'm going to go back a little bit farther. Look, Parker, I don't know what you want, but... He gestured toward the map on the wall, which he'd just enlarged. Do you recognize it? She stopped talking and squinted at the projected image, noticed the outline of the streets. The landscaping seemed familiar. She made out the curves of Sweet Hollow Lane. Mockingbird Hills. There's somebody with a crazy loud truck outside. Hang on. Right there. Mockingbird Hills. Precisely. The crime scene. He picked up a laser pin from the table and pointed it at the map. The Ingram mansion is here. The Van All place here. and the body was found here." His deep sigh echoed with grief and frustration. Miranda squinted at the map. It looked funny from overhead, but she recognized the tree line and the small clearing at its edge. "I found her right there." She shuddered, remembering the feel of Madison Taggart's cold body in her arms. "Yes." His voice had turned grim. She gestured to the papers piled on the table. "What's all this?" "Evidence. What we have so far." He put down the laser pin, picked up a few files, handed them to her. "These are the dossiers on Madison's friends." "You want me to look at them?" "Please." Gingerly, she took them, opened them one at a time. There were statements from Tiffany Todd and Ashley Ingram, assorted notes, school photos. She scanned them, recognized the young faces she'd seen in the Ingrams' driveway. Then she opened the third file. There was another picture. She held it out to Parker. "Who's this?" "Wendy Van Aal, Ashley Ingram's neighbor. They all attend Dogwood Academy, where Madison went to school." Dogwood Academy, one of the ritzy private schools where she'd tried to get a job when she first got to Atlanta. And Wendy Van Aal. Whoa. All right, we gotta hang on, there's a train. Okay, it's finally gone, so we can get back to what we were doing. So let's go back. Got to Atlanta. And Wendy Van Aal, the girl who lived in the mansion where Madison was found. The girl the other two were taunting that night. Miranda studied the photo. Wendy was all in black. Must be into one of those fads that appealed to kids her age. Dark hair, dark clothes, dark makeup. Sad, hollow eyes. A surly look on her cheerless face. She stared at the picture, and a sledgehammer hit her in the chest. Wendy looked a lot like herself. Amy? She scrutinized her throat. It was covered with black lace. Why was every girl's neck covered? She forced herself to exhale. It didn't matter. Wendy couldn't be Amy. That would be too easy. She could just imagine the look in Parker's eyes when he told her, no, Wendy wasn't adopted. She didn't bother to ask. She closed the files and set them down on the glassy table. "The girls' testimonies corroborate each other," Parker said. "Madison went to school as usual on Friday a week ago. That night, she and Ashley Ingram went to Tiffany Todd's house for a sleepover. She left the next morning and walked home by herself." Wow, we've got all kinds of vehicles going on right now. Or sleepover. She left the next morning and walked home by herself. And then? She never got there. Cloris Taggart, her mother, came home from shopping early that afternoon, expecting to find her daughter. She wasn't in her room or anywhere in the house or the yard. Cloris called Madison's friends. They told her they hadn't seen her since that morning. That's when they called you? They called the police. Later that night, Jackson Taggart called me. Parker picked up another document and handed it to her. Have you ever seen a coroner's report? Miranda shook her head. She'd always been curious about such things. Long ago, when Leon got his job on the police force, she'd asked him about autopsies and such, but he'd always said she was too stupid to understand them. She took the paper, scanned the pages. It was mostly medical mumbo-jumbo. She winced when she saw the cause of death, remembering that poor little girl had been strangled with a rope. Non-contributory drugs present? She read. GHB? Isn't that a date rape drug? Parker nodded. It's easy to get. The killer probably used it to sedate her. There was no sign of sexual assault. Somehow that news gave Miranda some relief. But how could the sick... Nope. Relief. But how could that sick bastard use a date rape drug on a little girl? She read more. The report described the clothes Madison was found in, the state of her body. The rain had washed away any fingerprints, including hers, she supposed. It says there was a substance on her face, neck, and arms? That was right. She'd forgotten it till now, but she'd felt something sticky on the girl and had wondered what it was. An ointment of some sort. Thank God there was just enough left on the body after the rain for the lab to analyze. Cooking oil mixed with sea salt, rosemary, sage, she read, then looked up at Parker with a grimace. Sounds like a salad dressing. Guess again. Her mind raced. Some kind of ritual? A purification rite of some sort, perhaps, as though it's the first in a series, or made to look like one, along with the ribbon around her neck. The ribbon that covered the bruises on her neck that had made Miranda think she was Amy. She put the paper down. These details were giving her the creeps. She held up a hand. He'd gone far enough. She'd better set him straight and get out of here. Look, Parker, I don't know what you want with... Look, Parker, I don't know what you want with me, but let's just can the shop talk. He eyed her with a penetrating look. You don't believe I'm serious about your job, do you? She glanced away to avoid his gaze and spotted a woman's picture on the credenza. She moved to it, picked it up. The woman was beautiful. Her soft, expressive brown eyes seemed to speak to her from the photograph. This is your wife? He stiffened. Yes. Pretty bold to keep a picture of her around while he was intending to cheat on her. You're married, so what do you want with me? He came around the table, stopped before he got too close. Her stubborn distrust of him irritated him. Do you think I brought you here under false pretenses, Miss Steele? She pointed toward the door. I just met two guys out there, one with... I just met two guys out there, one with military experience, the other who'd done collections or something. They told me there's a long line of folks waiting to work for you. You don't need me. Why did you bring me here? You have a rather low opinion of your own talents, don't you? She blinked at him. She could handle a rude sexual slur, a comment you'd hear in a bar. She didn't know what to do with a compliment in an office. No boss had ever told her she had talent. But it wasn't a question of talent. It was a question of experience. And of inclination. I know who I am, she told him flatly. And what I'm not. I think you're wrong. He took the picture out of her hands and gently set it down. And as for this photo, this is my late wife. She died 3 years ago. Ovarian cancer. Parker watched her, letting the impact of his words sink in, studying the light from the window play with the color of her dark hair. Her brows knitted with a mixture of embarrassment and sympathy. She had a sensitive side for all her toughness. Seeing it touched him. Miranda flinched. Parker's words had hit her like a punch in the chest. "I'm sorry." It was all she could think to say. "It was a natural mistake." He put his hand gently on her shoulder. Right there's good. He put his hand gently on her shoulder. It was the most sensual touch she'd ever felt. Maybe she was the one with the problem. He stepped back, folded his arms, and studied the aerial photo on the wall again. "Now that we understand one another better, let's get to the business at hand. We can't get the whole picture from this image. I'd say a visit to the crime scene is in order. Would you like to join me?" He wanted to take her back to that place? What for? "More clues, of course." She grimaced. "I don't know anything about looking for clues." "You're here to learn, and you could help. Something there might jog your memory. You might be able to think of something you saw or heard the night you found the body. Something the police missed." She held up a hand. He studied her with tenderness. "You don't have to go if it's too much for you." Well, she wasn't a wimp. She gave him a sharp look. "Am I on the clock?" "On the clock? Am I getting paid for this?" He chuckled. "Of course. I hired you. I don't break my word." She hesitated. "When do I get to use your internet connection? Your databases?" As soon as she had that kind of access, she could start looking for Amy again without drawing attention to herself. It would be worth it to stay. "Soon? Would you accompany me to the crime scene?" She ran her hand through her hair, scratching at her scalp. This whole thing was crazy. She wasn't any more a detective than the man in the moon. But if Parker wasn't trying to get in her pants, he might be bent on making her one. She shifted her weight. Miranda Steele, private eye. Not a bad ring to it. It wasn't like she had anything else to do. And she was getting paid. Plus, there was the off chance of doing something to help Madison Taggart's grief-stricken mother. She turned to him with a shrug. "Sure, why not?" "Sure, why not?" And that's all of Chapter 12. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.